God, why do you seem so angry in the Old Testament and so loving in the New? Are you the same God? And this is a question that has been asked for many years by many people. Why does it seem like the Old Testament God is this bloodthirsty egomaniac who has no grace, it seems, and just wants to wipe everybody out that doesn't agree with him? And yet in the New Testament, love your neighbor, pray for those who persecute you. Why is that? Is that really true? Is that really the case? We hope to get to the bottom of it tonight, although this will not certainly be the last word on it. We have limited time and there's been a lot written on it. And we can only kind of brush over the topic here, but we'll do our best in the amount of time we have. And we always have to start with people who disagree with us. I think we do. Because I think if you can take somebody who disagrees with you, an intelligent person who's well-read, who disagrees with you, and you can take their argument and then show that their argument doesn't work, that's the best way to really deal with the issue. I mean, take what the other side gives you, take their best shot and see if you can deal with it. Well, here is the best shot, I think, from an atheist. And this guy is the most famous atheist in the world today. His name is Richard Dawkins. And in his book, The God Delusion, here's what Dawkins says about the God of the Old Testament. He's a great writer. I just love this quote. I don't agree with it, but I love it. He says, the God of the Old Testament is arguably the most unpleasant character in all of fiction. Jealous and proud of it, a petty, unjust, unforgiving control freak, a vindictive, bloodthirsty ethnic cleanser, a misogynistic, homophobic racist, infanticidal, genocidal, filicidal, pestilential, megalomaniacal, sadomasochistic, capriciously malevolent bully, and those are his good qualities. Now that is a great quote, you got to admit, right? I mean, he's just thrown everything at God there. He said, God, you are just evil, the God of the Old Testament. Now, is this true? Well, we'll get into it. We'll get into it. He certainly has thrown about everything he can throw at the Old Testament God from his perspective. Now, why might somebody like Dawkins say this? Well, let's go back to Abraham and Isaac. Here is what God supposedly told Abraham to do with his one and only son. God said, take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains I will tell you about. Sacrifice your son? What? What do we do with people today who say that God told them to kill their children? We lock that person up, right? In fact, there have been many cases of this. God told me to do this. And yet Abraham, as we'll find out later, is actually credited with being faithful. Søren Kierkegaard, who is a Danish Christian philosopher, wrote a whole book on this called Fear and Trembling. Imagine if God had come to you, you thought it was God, and said, kill your only son. What would you do? Christopher Hitchens, who I've debated a couple of times, said, if God ever told me to do that, I would tell him, blank off. Is this the kind of God we worship here? How about, probably even more difficult than this, is the command to destroy the Canaanites from Deuteronomy 7. When the Lord your God brings you into the land you are entering to possess and drives out before you many nations, all these different tribes, the Hittites, the Girgashites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, the Jebusites, the Termites. There's just a whole bunch of ites in there. These 7 nations larger and stronger than you. And when the Lord your God has delivered them over to you and you have defeated them, then you must destroy them totally. Make no treaty with them and show them no mercy. Do not intermarry with them. And it goes on and on and on. An ethnic cleanser this God is? Genocidal? This is what Dawkins says. This is where Dawkins is getting this stuff from. What do we say to this? Killed the Canaanites and all these other ites. Why? Kill young and old. Kill babies. Wipe them out. This is the kind of God we worship? Why? All right, let's try and set the table for what we're going to try and do tonight. The first thing we're going to do is ask, is God only angry in the Old Testament and only loving in the New? Because it's quite often thought that's the case. Secondly, what is the purpose of the Bible? We need to do this. We mentioned this a few sessions ago, but we need to do this again. What is the real purpose of the Bible? Because it will help us understand what's going on here. Then we're going to try and talk about keys to understanding the God of the Old Testament and also the God of the New Testament. Then we're going to answer the question directly, is God a moral monster? What about the Canaanites? What about sacrificing Isaac? What about these crazy commands, it seems? And then, if we time this just right, we'll have absolutely no time for your questions. That's our goal here tonight. You guys ready to go?